Hello there, people of the internet. Now hold on, hold your angry comments, listen to what I have to say. So, the SKS. Oh boy, this is going to be a video that makes a lot of people angry. And this right here is an entirely opinion-based video. This isn't exactly something that can be gauged based off of fact, but I think that there's a lot that I'm going to say here that's probably going to present a lot of fact for you guys. So the SKS is probably the worst semi-automatic that you can decide to go to, but we're going to use that in the context of going up against a modern military force. I'm sure some people are going to go into the comments and tell me, hey, it's still being used, so it must still be good. Being used out of necessity because it is better than nothing does not make it as good as the other more modern things that you're going to find in a modern equipped military force. If you're going up against a modern military force, you don't want to be rocking old 40s style technology. So the SKS is a semi-automatic rifle, and we're going to be talking about the original military configuration, because of course with a modern manufacturing and whatnot, you could basically deck this thing out however it is that you want, and then the argument becomes very different. But in its original military configuration, for a military context, this right here would probably be the worst rifle, the worst semi-automatic rifle that you could possibly get your hands on. So this right here is a 10-round rifle, semi-automatic, chambered in 7.62 by 39, and the only real benefit for it is the fact that it is loaded with stripper clips, and so as a result you can carry more ammunition on you because you're carrying it in stripper clips as opposed to inside of magazines, which would have more weight. As a matter of fact, I did some math a while ago in one of my previous episodes, and I think it came out to you can carry like 50% more ammunition on SKS stripper clips as opposed to in like AK-47 magazines. I can't quite remember what all that math was, but it came out to about that. You can carry about 50% more ammo if you have the same amount of weight for the ammunition that you are carrying. But that's pretty much the only benefit for the SKS rifle. Now, I would take a semi-automatic SKS rifle over something like a bolt action any day of the week, but that does not make it the ideal setup. I know a lot of people tell me in an end-of-the-world apocalyptic situation they're going to grab their SKS, and a lot of it has to do with that's the rifle they have and that's what they know, etc., etc. It's definitely a better-than-nothing sort of context, but we're going to be comparing this to the more modern applications that are out there on the market. I'm not calling this a bad rifle. I am not saying that this cannot do the job. I'm saying that there are better things out there that can do the job much more easily and much more effectively. 7.62 by 39 is a powerhouse of a cartridge, and it's capable out to about 400 yards, which is where most combat tends to take place at. But going up against a modern military force, 400 yards is more like middle ground of where combat starts to take place at. Not only that, but combat, meaning exchange of gunfire, isn't necessarily what modern combat has turned into. Nowadays, it's all artillery fire and airstrikes and etc., things that aren't small arms fire. So your small arm tends to matter less. And whenever you do find yourself in conflicts that do have modern small arms exchanging fire, assuming that both sides actually have modern small arms, there are situations where that 400 yards is assuming that the modern small arms have proper optics with magnifications, etc., that 400 yards becomes the middle ground, and you start seeing people touch out to 500, 600, 700 yards with their self-loading standard issue firearms. 7.62 by 39 just does not lend itself all that well to shooting out at long distances. That being said, I still think it's the best cartridge for civilian ownership because most civilians don't really touch out beyond that 400 yards. I made videos talking about that in previous episodes, but from a military context, 7.62 by 39 is really beginning to show its age, especially as we move more into modern optics and longer range engagement distances. So on top of the cartridge, it only holds 10 rounds of ammunition if we're talking about the standard stock military configuration rifle. That 10 rounds of ammunition inside of a semi-automatic rifle goes very, very quickly. Ask me how I know. I have taken this SKS out to the range many, many times. If you want to help me get back out to the range with this SKS, then I've got links to Patreon and Utreon down below. Go ahead and go check those out, or you can go buy a shirt to help the cause, or you can do a one-time donation through the shirt store. So that 10 rounds goes very, very quickly. And then the inconsistencies with reloading whenever it comes to your stripper clips, sometimes they're fast and they work great, and then other times you have to fight them every step of the way in order to actually get your rifle reloaded. I would definitely, absolutely 110% prefer an external magazine fed system to where I don't have to fight my rounds every step of the way. I can just load in a new external magazine and move on with my life. So yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest cons. The stripper clips are a big pro, but they're also a big con for this firearm system. On top of that, no way to really mount optics on this thing. You could get rid of the rear sight, but then you're getting rid of your backup iron sights. There's no rail systems. There's no real way to mount anything onto this thing without modifying it. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to bubble your rifle, then we're no longer talking about a military-style SKS, military configuration. We're now talking about a customized rifle that is no longer an original style of SKS, and with that being the case, you can do whatever it is that you want. But there's no way to really mount an optic onto an SKS. You could throw a Picatinny rail up here and mount on some sort of optic, but like I said, then you give up having your iron sights, and that is just not something I myself am willing to do. I need to have those iron sights as backup because I've had plenty of optics fail on me before. On top of not being able to mount an optic, there's no way to really mount accessories on this thing. There's no Picatinny rails, no M-LOK systems, no anything like that. How are you going to stick a flashlight on this? How are you going to stick lasers or IR or whatever it is that you need to use in your modern military context? You just can't stick that on here. A lot of people are going to say, I'll take the SKS because, hey, I like the SKS, and then they get clapped at night because they can't see because it's night, and you're dealing with Johnny Rogers over there with his IR M4 from 300 yards away, and he can see you clear as day because he's using an IR M4. So there's no way to mount any sort of night vision or any sort of anything, no accessories whatsoever onto this rifle. No flashlight, no, there's just no mounting system. You could do the whole duct tape method or like zippy ties or zip ties, whatever those things are called. There are ways to get around it, but boy, those are not ideal. Definitely not ideal. On top of that, anybody who's ever taken apart an SKS knows that there's little tiny pieces inside of the gas system. If you lose one of those little tiny pieces, that is not going to be a good day for you because then your rifle is no longer going to function. And if you drop it, they are very easy to lose. Ask me how I know. I have literally lost pieces from the SKS on more than one occasion and had to replace them. So in a combat situation, those little tiny pieces, not something that you want to deal with. And then on top of all of that, the SKS is significantly longer than a lot of your other firearms that are out there on the market that would serve as modern military-style firearms like an AR or an AK. Now, in the U.S., we have certain regulations and whatnot that we have to abide by for civilian ownership, but from a military context, we don't necessarily have to do that. So, if you are dealing with a military context or end of the world or something that does not require you to follow any sort of laws, which we're not currently at, make sure that you follow all of your laws, then you can have barrel lengths of any desire that you want. But on the SKS, the front sight is at the end of the barrel. So if you try to shorten this barrel by hacking it off, you lose your front sight. There are ways to get the front sight back down to a better spot on the barrel, but unless you're running a machine shop during the apocalypse, it's not going to be the most practical or the easiest. Then if you shorten this thing down, then your bayonet no longer becomes functional. In this particular case, I am missing my bayonet on this particular rifle. It's just not an ideal situation to try and shorten the barrel on an SKS. Especially in a context to where you are dealing with wartime situations, and modifying firearms is not going to be a very good idea. So, yeah, these right here are quite a deal longer than most people give them credit for. You hold one of these, and it becomes very apparent just how long these are compared to some of your more modern firearms. Another really, really big disadvantage of the SKS is the price point that people are asking for right now in 2023. These right here are normally going for like $600, $700 plus dollars because people are paying that for whatever reason. Now, if I was like, if we were back 15 years ago and you could pick up SKSs for like less than $100 a piece, they're absolutely worth it, dude. Stockpile those things. But nowadays, that's $600 or $700 price point to get you an SKS. This clapped out military surplus rifle with a 3 to 5 MOA grouping, that's just not worth that $600-$700 price point. And like you can go out and get yourself a modern made AR or AK and accessories and magazines and ammunition for that $600 to $700 price point that you would be spending on your SKS. There's just way better options out there for the money, and these modern platforms are going to have different rail systems like Picatinny or M-LOKs that you can mount optics to, and they're going to have ammunition that's more available here inside the United States. 5.56 is absolutely everywhere, assuming that you decide to go with the AR platform. But yeah, they got rail systems that you can mount stuff to. They got external magazines, so you can go ahead and not have to worry about trying to fumble with stripper clips to reload your firearms in the heat of battle. They just have a lot of perks going with a modern system. Not only that, but modern manufacturing means that those rifles tend to be significantly more accurate than the old school firearms. Your old school military surplus, off-the-shelf, rack-grade surplus rifle only has about a 3 to 5 MOA standard on it. That was their standard back in the day. Now, granted, you can find rifles, military surplus rifles, that are more accurate than that, but just as the standard, that's normally what you would find. And this SKS is no different. I actually took this out for competition shooting not that long ago, and I had 4.5 MOA, if memory serves me correct, out of this SKS from a bench-rested position. So, yeah, they can be pretty gosh darn inaccurate, and that's just the nature of the beast whenever it comes to military surplus firearms. You can definitely get yourself a much, much better system for the same amount of money that you would spend on this antiquated system. Antiquated? One of those words. So, hopefully you guys don't hate me too much talking about the SKS, and hopefully this doesn't upset that many people. Hopefully you guys can at least see the points I'm trying to make here. These right here are expensive, they're heavy, they're long. They do not have modern features like rail systems or anything like that. Of course, you can customize these however it is that you want, but you go customizing rifles and everything is just off the table at that point because you can do whatever it is that you want whenever you're customizing firearms. But the original military style configuration SKS, probably not what it is that you want to go for, especially if you're going up against people who have much more modern equipment. So, all that being said, thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you guys on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett.
Shame that bolt action shotguns aren't more mainstream.